Welcome, everyone. We want to thank you for joining us. This is Hip Hop Citizen live on Sunday for the Sunday Special Report. I'm the Diva, and these are my views. And with me tonight, as always, is Architect Seven.
How we doing this evening?
How are you doing today, Architect? You have a good weekend?
I did, actually this topic I was a little bit honestly excited about this topic because it's near and dear to me.
Oh, I'm
Um,
glad to hear it.
yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting into this conversation and seeing if we can get anybody to participate and share any stories they may have.
Absolutely. We want to let everybody know that this is Hip Hop Citizen. To our listeners and viewers, you can catch us on Facebook. We're live on streaming platforms such as Twitch and YouTube. And we want to make sure that you feel that you can be a part of the conversation. Links will be in the chat windows and linked in the description box for everybody to like, share, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Friend us on Twitch. This is the Sunday Special Report where we talk about topics that are hip hop adjacent and we delve deeper into the topics that concern all our hip hop citizens. So we want to thank you for coming into the room and joining us. Now, I do realize that you see Architect's fabulous face, and there is still an avatar on the screen for me. And on Friday Night Live, there was some there was some talk of a face reveal, but you know what? Stay with us through the topic. Give us a call, and who knows? Maybe there will be a face reveal halfway through the show. So we'll keep that as a surprise. The mystery continues. I'm an enigma wrapped in bacon. So what we're going to do is talk about mental wellness. Rather than framing it as mental illness, as is often the case, that's where the stigma comes from. We want to make sure that we address what will make you well instead of saying that you're ill. A lot of what we talk about is about, are you okay? Even when the pandemic was going on, Architect, we saw a lot of celebrity commercials with their streaming videos asking each other, are you okay? It should be more than just a check in call. Actually ask the question, and it's okay to ask, and it is okay to not be okay. What are your
And
thoughts?
I think more times than not, the ones that are actually dealing with mental wellness or any type of quote unquote illness tend to be the ones that look the strongest on the outside. Um, just kind of been my experience and what I've witnessed. They laugh a lot. There's a lot of a smile, but deep beneath that smile, there's a lot going on that people are not aware of.
It's definitely a mask that can be worn. A lot of the times, that's what people are doing. And I've often heard it said that comedians are actually the most depressed and hurt, broken people you'll meet. The first person that comes to mind is Robin Williams and the struggle
Yeah,
he had with his mental health and dealing with it. And we finally lost him because the pain was too much. But we want to make sure people realize that even if you're not okay, you need to not be okay. It's all right to sometimes have to lay in bed or be sad, or, my friends and I always say amongst ourselves, go ahead and have a pity party for 2 days and then we
not
want
right.
you back to normal. But sometimes you need a little longer than that, and that should be okay.
Definitely agree. I think too many times it's almost a taboo to talk about. And in a society where everything is happening so fast and information is coming at us so fast, um, it's hard to get that silent moment to be able to catch up with everything that you're dealing with in your life.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And, I can't see where anybody can have an opposing viewpoint to that. I would be wary of someone who disagrees with the idea that you shouldn't, have your feelings, express them as real and valid, and explore them and examine them and live in them for a while. But you're right, there's a stigma. And I often look at the myth of the strong black woman and the stoic black man. We're going to talk about that for a second. We realize that everyone experiences these health issues, but we're going to focus on the Black community because that's where a lot of the stigma is. People think that if you have an illness, oh, you should be in a hospital, you should be committed, you got to go to Bellevue, we got to, 72-hour hold you. And that's not always the case. Sometimes a strong Black woman is, like you said, the one who's hurting the most.
Right. Yeah, no, I think it just goes to say, just the culture that we live in, especially for just speaking from a male perspective, we're taught men don't cry, men don't have emotions, um, and so therein lies why many men kind of hold that stuff in and maybe lash out in certain ways that they don't even, people don't recognize that that's exactly what they're dealing with.
Exactly. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes later on in the show. And we want to remind everyone, and I forgot to do this in the beginning, we are going to be talking about sensitive topics. We may be addressing issues of self-harm, suicide, or assault if anyone calls in with their story. So we want to warn our listeners and viewers that those topics may come up. If they're hard for you, where you're listening, where sensitive ears may be, we want to warn you about that ahead of time. We're going to be delving deep into these things. So I apologize. I should have said that at the beginning. The stigma, a lot of the times, I'm going to look at it from a female perspective. The stoic Black man is that they're taught not to cry, not to feel emotions. In a brother-sister relationship, the girl can cry when she falls down, but the boy is told to, shake it off, walk it off, get over it.
Exactly.
And I often look at it as why does it have to be like that? Why does it have to be the difference? And I don't
Yeah.
know if it's, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Finish what you were saying.
Why does it have to be different between the boys? Are they trying to get them ready for the life they're living? Are they trying to get them ready for I guess the realities of the world? I can see that, but there's so many other ways to do it. And yeah, in this picture, you see, this is where people think you should be if you have an illness. But if you look at a picture of a Black couple together, that's also something where nobody's smiling. They're stoic. They've got to put on that front of being tough. But what's your perspective?
Well, not only the idea of being tough, but also the idea that you're more of a man if you're dealing with more women. There is a narrative that is placed inside of you, so it's not even just about emotions; it's about relationships and how you're supposed to carry those relationships. And as you move through your life, you begin to recognize that that character or that narrative that they've placed upon you doesn't work. In fact, it creates more
Right.
issues. You and I'm just speaking from experience. This is total experience. You end up living a life based on the narrative or the box that you've been painted in, and then that creates so many issues around yourself, which in turn, of course, affects the subconscious of of a human being. Period.
Right. A lot of the times, the medical doctors and the psychiatrists have said that having an issue with your wellness, framing it as an illness, can result in brain damage. You are damaged as a person when you have to deal with that on a regular
Right.
basis. And with those outside influences coming in, it's so tough for you to
Yeah.
say to toughen up. I'm going to speak to the Black community specifically, and I experienced this myself early on, is that you're always told to pray. Like just pray it away, or, lean on God and he'll have you, and, stay in the church and lean on other people. But it, it's hard to say. I don't want to be disrespectful, but it's like God can't reach down into your brain and fix that chemical imbalance, or he can't get rid of the negative talk. It's not always the solution.
Right. No, I totally agree with that. In some of the battles that I went through, I even tried. I mean, when you're going through something as intense as that, and I'm sure there's, of course, there's varying levels, but I, speaking from the issues that I've have faced, there's a lot of dark moments, and you're just looking for anything and everything that can pull you out of those moments. So yes, the spirituality aspect, the church and what have you is always presented. However, when those things go against some of the core of what you're witnessing and what you are dealing with in your everyday life, that's creates even more of a struggle.
I mean, it really does, because like I said, there's nothing against, being prayed up and leaning on faith and having that faith. If that is your support system, your social system, and that's what you're used to, and it does make you feel better, then that's what works for you. And
Right.
nobody should be downing that. That's not the issue. The issue is when religion, I'm going to put it that way, when religion tells you to ignore it in favor of that religion, in favor of the dogma. That's
Right.
where I think the stigma comes from, that you must have demons, or, you lost God's grace, something wrong with you.
Right.
And that's a part of it I don't appreciate.
Right. No, I totally agree with that. And again, those quote unquote demons or dark aspects that you have to face, which I call those are basically what I consider is shadow work. You have to do the shadow work. Um,
Hmm.
Crazy as it sounds, you can embrace the good, but there comes a time where you're gonna have to embrace the bad. You're gonna have to face it. And I think we spend a lot of time looking for distraction or something to pull us away from the fact that we need to face that.
I don't want to, frame it to people who do have that faith, who walk their walk in faith, and have Jesus by their side, to think that it's useless, because a lot of the times it is. Maybe it works for somebody that has that depression or melancholy or
Totally.
anxiety to have that. But at the same time, for somebody who is really struggling, it could be chemical, it could be a deep trauma that makes them feel worse, to feel like they're disappointing God, they've lost their faith, they're not doing good enough works. That can make it worse. I know that was my experience. You feel like you're letting people down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
that gets in.
it totally to kind of say, to kind of back what you're saying, you know, in those moments, you're reaching for whatever works. So, yes, agreed. In my opinion, whatever works for you, you know, so be it. Make it happen. If it works, it works. Because there's nothing worse than being in that pit, um, trying to figure out how to get out.
Right. There's that sense of hopelessness and just exhaustion. You're just tired. It's really worn you down to that point where I can even see in my head, if you're at that bottom of that well with the light shining down on you, you're just holding your knees to you and just like resting. You're not
Yeah.
even trying to climb out. You're not even trying to struggle anymore or pace the floor. You're just sitting there because
Yeah.
you're just so tired.
And
So I think that's what people need to face first.
yeah, it's that thing of it's almost just to say what you were saying, when you feel like you're letting people down, it's almost a shame or a guilt. And
Right.
why we feel that, I don't know, but it's definitely a shame or guilt, and you don't want to be seen. And the crazy part is that people would never know that you're going through it, because you're not verbalizing, you're not speaking on it, you're holding so much in. And again, the strong ones tend to be that way. People look and say, oh, they're fine, but they might fall off the radar for a little bit, and you're like, they're not answering my calls, and and you're taking it personal, but they could be curled up in the bed, not ready to face.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. That's these days people take it real personal, especially with the technology and social media. If you're not liking their pictures and like putting your statuses up and answering texts, they think it's about them, when it's really about you and what you're going through. And I think that goes back to the stigma of what it means to have mental struggles. There's this stigma that there's something wrong with you. You are wrong for having these feelings and anxieties and things like that. But when traumatic events happen, I want to talk about not exactly like self trauma, deep topics that I'm not qualified to speak on, such as abuse or childhood trauma or anything like that. But a lot of traumatic events have been happening lately and
mhm.
touching everybody's consciousness. And when we see a traumatic event, but it's not happening to us, maybe we've experienced it through a family member's trauma, or we've seen it, there's this information overload that comes in. We are constantly bombarded with a 24-hour news cycle. Instantly, you can find out about something that happened in India. Instantly, you can learn about a shooting in DC. And when you take all that into your mind from whatever source, it stays there. Like that's a memory you've made now. And
That's
then the isolation of the pandemic made it was its own trauma.
right. Well, and I think I've spent so much time after going through my episode was so dark, but I spent so much time reading, and a lot of people say that your mind doesn't know the difference if you're experiencing it firsthand or if you're watching it through a television, your mind is experiencing it as it is. And so subconsciously we don't realize, it's not just about what we're eating that we digest, being careful as far as like what we eat and digest, but it's also about what we take in, hear, see. It's a pretty deep concept.
It is, and I want people to understand that, especially in this social media age. There are times when you have to detox from that. We're going to talk about self-care and the things we can do, for each other and for ourselves later on in the show. But you take in so much from so many different sources: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. All the kids, as they say, are into TikTok, and you don't know what you're going to come up against. You don't know what you're going to find and experience, and those things, are in you now. Like you said, you're digesting them, but you don't know if you're digesting them the right way. There's a way to take that information in and say, you know what, now that I have this information, I can enact change, or I can make a change in my behavior. You can use that positively. But there are some people who take that information in and it just ruminates, and they just stay in that trauma with them. When I watched, I made the mistake of watching the Ahmaud Arbery shooting. I had to tell my friends, don't watch that, because now I've
Right.
seen it, and as you said, you can't unsee that now. I couldn't unsee that puff of red and him running back into the screen. Like, I couldn't unsee that. And so when you see those images over and over, George Floyd, and you imagine the idea of Breonna Taylor, because I don't think we have tapes of her yet. When you think about Amadou Diallo and Sean Bell's body in the street, you take that upon yourself and you feel that pain, and now that's your pain. Because when Tatiana Jefferson died, I burst into tears.
And we can even take it over to another angle too, right? So these are real life scenarios, but let us not forget that Hollywood itself, some of the imagery that's portrayed in these movies, whether you know it or not, definitely pluck on your emotions. That it's definitely feeding into your subconscious and your emotions, and people don't recognize some of the damage that's being done just within that alone.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. If you want to go deeper on that, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, it's just, again, it goes back to your mind not being able to recognize whether you're experiencing that in like real time versus watching a movie. Your mind looks at that and you're getting chemical reaction based on what you are viewing, whether it be the adrenaline pump or what have you. Your mind doesn't know the difference if you're experiencing that for real. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And so that is kind of like the subliminal aspect of what we deal with in society.
I definitely see that, because that's the whole point of you going to that movie and experiencing that. You get exhilaration, or you get joy, or something's funny, or like you said, you've got that adrenaline pumping when you're in the movie. It makes me think of Scary Movie with Brenda, and something happens on the screen. She's like, "Oh Lord, I thought he was gonna get her." Like, you experience that, like you going through it. But then it does depend on what it's feeding you. Is it feeding you something positive? Is it feeding you somebody else's mental illness, and now you're experiencing it? That's the stuff that comes in. So it looks like we have a caller. Who are we talking to tonight? It looks like our friend.
What's going on, Gabe?
Hey, what's going on, y'all? How y'all doing? Good.
We're good tonight. Are you calling in about the topic tonight?
Yeah, you're talking about mental food, right? What you feed your mind,
Yes, sir.
right? Yes. I have a lot to say about it because it's all about frequencies.
Yeah.
We all resonate on certain frequencies, and if we were to have like I don't know, like a spectrogram or X-ray machine, we could see all the frequencies that are bouncing in and around us, going through us, around us, and everything else.
Right.
And it's how you calibrate those frequencies. And there's certain frequencies and tones that can set you off.
Right.
And You know, I think in somewhere in the Judeo-Christian Bible, I don't know what version, they call Lucifer the prince of the air. Think about it.
Oh,
The air. This is how we
okay.
get our information. Now, have any of you all seen the movie Heat from back in the day? De Niro and Pacino, right? Anybody
No.
see?
Oh no, I didn't
Okay,
see that one.
great crime film. Now, there's an interesting scene in there where they go meet this guy up in the Hollywood Hills, and he has all these antennas up in the hills, and De Niro's like, "Yo, what's this all about?" He goes, "Oh man, everything's up in the air. I just pull it down. So it's the
Okay.
frequencies out here. Now, if you do a frequency enough, yeah, people, digest it. You can look at like whack urban radio playing bullshit R&B and hip hop, the messaging,
Right.
functional
Yeah.
messaging. I think, therefore I am.
They don't call
Garbage
it
in, garbage out.
Hey, Gabe, they don't call it programming for nothing.
That's right.
Oh,
Now,
have you heard, Gabe, predictive programming? I've started hearing that lately.
oh yeah. Like they can anticipate what you can, what you're gonna, get into and stuff. Also, too,
Yeah.
that's big data.
Go ahead.
No, that's big data. So being in the IT field, that is big data, and quantum computing is going to play a big role in that.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
It's scary. It's like Minority Report and AI,
Very real.
Oh, that's coming. That's probably already.
Yeah. And, to y'all's point earlier, I was going to say, lastly, talking about what we watch on TV and the movies and how it shapes our perception. Think about it with violence. We've been so desensitized to a certain level about violence. So when it happens, for some, it's like this, like denial, like, is this really happening? Or, like explosions and bullets and stuff like that. Some people are been so shaped by Hollywood and TV, they don't realize the magnitude of dangerous situations and scenarios. This ain't a game. Ain't like you're gonna get game over. You know what I mean? So
right,
I think
like people describe gunshots as fireworks.
Yeah.
That way on TV, you hear real life.
Yeah. People get shot in the shoulder. Oh, I'm hit. I'm hurt. Man.
Yeah.
No.
No.
No. So, but yeah, I think, what you guys are, you're just hitting the tip of the iceberg. It really comes down to media literacy. We so much emphasize reading, writing, and arithmetic, but we live in such a visually stimulated society now that there needs to be media literacy taught to people.
Yeah, but
now, Gabe, how would you frame that as in terms of people's mental wellness and how they protect it?
Well, it would be about understanding what you're ingesting, and also, exercises and things like, there's a thing called solfeggio frequencies. And if you listen to these tones and tunes, they can, cleanse your aura and, help you deal with your negative thoughts and stuff like that. So, it's a metaphor to me is rewriting source code. Your mind is like ones and zeros. You got to rewrite the source code.
Man, and we're going to get to that. Like, I can't wait. Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that, because here later on in the program, we're going to get down into some of the self-help stuff. And I'm anxious to talk about it, because there's methods that I used during the time that I was struggling that are totally in step with what you just mentioned. So I think that's pretty incredible.
We got that.
It is. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Gabe. We appreciate you.
We're talking about.
Yeah. People
thank you. Thank you for touching upon it.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. I might show some face later.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah, I have to see you. I know you behind this wall. I don't know if you're real or not.
Oh no, I'm an AI like Sophia the robot.
Here we go. Here we go.
Yeah, yeah. You're like, how? So, okay.
Ah,
Thank you
all
all.
right, Gabe, stay with us. Of course, thank you for listening. All
Okay.
right, y'all, that was Gabe, and he was calling in and participating in the conversation. We encourage everybody to do the same as well. It's probably about that time to remind everybody that this is Hip Hop Citizen. This is our live stream Sunday special report where we talk about topics that are hip hop adjacent. We have our link in the description boxes and pinned in comments and chats where you can call in, just like Gabe did, and participate in the conversation. What has been your experience with protecting your mental wellness? What tips do you have for people as far as self-care that we're going to talk about later on in the show? Do you think there is a stigma attached to the Black community taking care of their mental health and mental wellness? Because we'll be diving into that in the frame of the hip hop community and what they've been saying about mental health and mental care. Architect, there are different types of mental stress, and we've been touching on that. In the meantime, again, for our sensitive listeners, we're going to be diving into deeper psychiatric topics. Things like mental stress of anxiety, depression, compulsive behavior, and how those things manifest. Like you mentioned, explosive anger, self harm,
Mhm.
promiscuity, self medicating. There are so many different ways that manifests itself, and people attribute it to, well, he's just a jerk, or she's just a bitch, or there's
Right,
something that they want to put a label on to make it go away so that they don't have to examine it. But there's something
right,
behind that.
right. No, no, I totally agree, and that just comes from people taking time to really put themselves in other people's shoes and understand the dynamics that they may be dealing with. We've become so self-centered as to think that everything revolves around the way that we feel and nothing else. And that even goes to the individuals that do suffer from the anxiety and depression. So we get so in tune and turned into that until we don't realize there's millions of other people that we can collaborate with and help each other. So
Right.
uh,
You
a lot of
become that diagnosis. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
right. No, you capped it off perfect. You become that diagnosis. That's perfectly said.
Yeah, I've seen people where it becomes their identity. Like, oh, I'm bipolar, so this explains that. Or I have ADHD, so this explains this. And I'm
Right,
like, okay, that's a explanation, but it's not an excuse. And you
right,
can only give people so much leeway when you are dealing with mental health, because that's the other distinction we should make. It is important to be mindful of someone who is suffering with different issues. And we're not talking about the deep diagnoses like schizophrenia or dementia or something like chemically that we just can't deal with on a surface level. We're talking about someone who may have anxiety or depression, a compulsive behavior, not OCD diagnosed, because that's turning lights on and off, counting things. We're talking about people who are still high functioning, but seem to use it as a crutch. Do you know what I'm talking about, architect?
oh yeah, certainly we run a loop. You get trapped in this loop, the woe is me loop. And again, you begin to believe that you're the only one in the world that have these issues or are dealing with these problems. And because it's so taboo to talk about, you're left to try to figure out on your own. And not only that, but the individuals that are judging people that are going through it, they may even be broken too and don't even realize it. And that's
Right.
their form of reflecting their brokenness.
I think
I just
so,
know,
especially in a family situation. Like if your kid's depressed, you may have to face that you are too. Or if your kid's
yeah,
suffering with something, you may have to face what you did to contribute.
right, right. And again, and then we can take that now. You're talking, family history. You're talking at this point, it becomes almost the DNA because it's been handed down for so long, and we don't even realize it. And I think that's the bigger challenges when we're facing these problems. Is number one, recognizing where it comes from first, right? So there may be some new things that you brought onto yourself and bring into the fold, but there may be old hardwired habits that have been brought into your life from birth. And at that point, it becomes exactly what Gabe said. It's about reprogramming, and it's really hard. It's not an easy thing to do.
You have to be willing to put in the work to deal with it, and the hard work starts with you facing it, just like any other program where you're trying to fix something you felt was out of your control. The first thing you have to do is acknowledge it and take control of it. And while
Yeah.
Catherine is making a point about people having victim mentality, I hate thinking like that myself, because if you do feel like you're a victim of something, it's because you have been. It's
Right.
not that everybody wants sympathy. They're out there. They absolutely
Right.
are. But I don't think that's the majority. I think a lot of people have been through something that has crippled them in some way, that
Right.
has diminished them or held them back in some way.
Right. But I think it goes back to what you were saying. I think her comment goes exactly back to what you were saying a little bit before about using that as the crutch, you know, uh,
Yeah.
because we definitely,
Yeah.
there's definitely, and I'm speaking from experience. I remember the moment that I realized that loop, I kept hitting that loop. And then you get to this point in your life where you realize that character or that narrative that you've lived with your whole life that had seemed to work at that point it's no longer works. It's no longer serving its purpose in society. And I think that's where your anxiety, that's where your depression, that's where a lot of things start setting in at that realization.
And then we want to talk about how it manifests itself, because that's an important thing to look at as well. And I don't think a lot of people try to understand that. It can manifest itself in so many ways. It can be that explosive anger where one minute that person's on the TV, on the couch watching TV, and the next minute they're like threatening to throw the dog out the window. Or there are people who self-harm. They cut themselves or burn themselves. They they say it's to make themselves feel alive. They want to watch their blood come out to feel like a person. Um, for some people, it's promiscuity. It's not always that the girl's a slut or somebody's a sex addict. It's not always those two extremes. They are honestly trying to find something to fill the void when it's
Right.
something like that. Self-medicating. Everybody's experienced self-medicating to a degree.
Yeah. And I think a lot of,
The weed and the pills and the alcohol. But
right.
let me know your perspective, architect.
I think to yourself, to the self-medication, um, uh, whether it be cutting yourself or promiscuity, the drugs, like all of that is that form. Some people get stuck on video games and they never want to leave them. That's where they're at. Like that's the,
Mm,
you know what I'm saying? So I think
yes, I do.
you can kind of lump all of that into that, self-medication, however you choose to do it to get yourself out of that, not having to face what it is you're dealing with.
Exactly. Not having to face it. You're right. It's soothing to have to play the same level. It's soothing to take your mind off something and focus on a first person shooter.
Right.
That's how someone soothes themselves, because they're not trying to deal with the thoughts in their head,
Get a level
the
up.
racing thoughts, the
Right.
negative talk.
Get a level up badge.
Yeah.
Cleared this level. I'm excited. I accomplished something. You know what I mean? It's a high.
Yeah. When they feel they haven't achieved anything in real life, hey, me and
Right.
my team made it through this level.
Right.
I'm not the person to come to. I always died in GoldenEye. But so video games are not my soothing.
Right.
But I definitely have had experience with that, where whatever I was dealing with, it manifested itself because I wasn't facing it.
Right. Yeah. No.
And a lot of times, like you said,
No. Yeah.
go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
I was going to say, a lot of the times people aren't facing something because they can't face themselves. We wear a mask, as one of my favorite TV stars, RuPaul, says. We're all born naked and the rest is drag, because we're putting something on to face the world, and
Right.
because we don't want the world to see us. Because if
Right.
they saw us, they may not love us, they may not like us, they may not want us around.
And
And
that
some
comes
people are not. Go ahead.
that that comes back to your uh how it's kind of transformed into social media, but even before social media, that wanting acceptance.
Hmm.
Um, um, Therefore, now the acceptance has become the like or the love icon on below whatever you're posting. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Who was it that I was listening to the other day that said that, and I think there's studies been done about it too, that like you get, or like you said, that heart you get, does release adrenaline, or it, what does it release? Like serotonin hits. And
Mm-hmm.
you feel validated when you see 153 likes on your comment, or you feel validated that someone has, tagged you in a comment and agreed with you. And so you get that boost when you see that. And that's how people get addicted to social media.
Right.
There are studies done about it. It's interesting to look those up and see what conclusions they've gotten to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's a complex. I guess that just goes to the human mind as a whole. We know a lot, but we definitely don't nowhere near enough.
Absolutely. I mean, like I was alluding to before, a lot of us, have masks on. We have avatars. We play games. You can play like The Sims and stuff, where you can make the Sims look like you and things like that. We want to live a whole other life because we don't like the one we
Yep.
have. We wish it
Right.
was something else. And
Right.
those masks we put on, those avatars we create to walk through the game and get coffee with friends or something like that, that's who we wish we were. And instead, we have to be about who we are. What's this meme say? This is
Yeah.
Willy Wonka meme.
That's so true. It's so true. I think about the same thing. I can tell you
Absolutely. And I know
with people.
some people, yeah.
And like, let's just say the work environment. Tell me how many times that you've known somebody at work, right? And you know that you'll get along with them, but then outside of work, you see a totally different person from the person you see at work.
Yeah. And even outside of
And
code switching, because that's a whole other thing.
right, stress. That's a whole other stress factor that you got to live through, because you can't go in there and be you. You have to go in there and
Yeah.
be what they want you to be.
Gabriel had the right word, is dopamine. Thank you, Gabriel. I was having a senior moment. His dopamine hits. We always appreciate our people in the chat on Facebook, YouTube. Join us on Twitch. Make sure you friend us. Sometimes we're on Periscope. We appreciate everybody tuning in. And like I said, I heard a little birdie say that there was going to be a face reveal. Bam!
Mm. Ah,
There it
there you
is.
go.
There it is. I don't see what the big deal was. Here's me with my hair and,
Oops.
a little lipstick on, with my messy room behind me in the background. I know you're not applauding. Uh, I definitely. Hey, y'all. Hey. Hey, girl. Hey. Um, for a while, of course, I'm hanging with the boys and having my avatar up because I felt like it was a protection for me, for people I didn't know yet, for, to protect me from trolls and things like that. And y'all didn't have to look at my messy room. But
We love you either way,
now
Diva.
that I've been around, and you guys are okay. So now that I've gotten used to everybody and being on the show, I guess everybody wants to know who they talking to. So here we are. Oh, Catherine. So here you are. Nothing to see here. I can barely see my lipstick. I got all dolled up. I can barely see it. Uh, so you guys may or may not see me. Look, I'm doing this on a phone, as you can tell. It gets overheated. If I have to go back to the avatar to keep things down.
Hey, Grace, how
Hey,
you doing?
Grace Martin. Hey, girl, hey, y'all. Introducing myself to the world, it feels like. Look, I'm on a phone. If I have to put the phone down and put it on an ice pack, I'm going right back to the avatar. So y'all keep rocking with us, okay? I ain't got my fabulous setup like the boys do. But if y'all
Yeah,
want to hit us on the Cash App, $ Hiphopcitizen, and leave us a tip, we'd appreciate it. Maybe I
yeah,
can get some equipment.
yeah. Help us keep the
No, for
lights
real,
on.
y'all. Hiphopcitizen on Cash App. Give us a tip.
Yeah.
So now you can see me making faces and being silly. We want to join everyone, our listeners who may be international and rocking with us in different areas. We want to thank you for joining us on Sunday Special Report, where we talk about things that are hip hop adjacent. A lot of the time I look at my screen because I'm reading notes. And we are discussing today mental wellness, self-care, and you. And I think it's important for the hip hop community to realize that nobody has a market on this. It's not just for white people. We should all be taking care of ourselves and looking at what we've been going through here lately. we want everybody to take the time to care for themselves. And just like, we have in these signs, you don't give up. You are not alone. You matter. So,
That's
Architect, we're going to go right into our self-care segment.
okay. Um,
We want y'all to realize it's not just yoga. It's not yoga and smoothies and like saying om in a room. That works for some people, but it's more than yoga. There's more to
right.
self-care than that.
Agreed. I follow a gentleman by the name of Dr. Joe Dispenza. And so he's done a couple of books, Change Your Brain and Becoming Supernatural. And then he's also got a series
Mhm.
that's called Rewired on Amazon on the Gaia Network. And
Okay.
he basically alluded to what Gabe was talking to us about earlier about learning how to reprogram your brain, basically installing a new operating system. Essentially, when you realize um, your brain is electric, your brain is very much a computer, and you can really take control and
Oh yeah.
clean it up. There's a lot of powerful tools out there for sure.
We are all electric impulses with some water mixed in. Like that's all we are. And we're walking around in these sacks of meat with bones. And our brain is like a big computer. It downloads information when you dream. That's your day processing in its processor, and then it stores it in different parts of your brain. Grace Martin, thank you so much. I saw you comment, girl. Thank you. But Architect has a point. There are ways that you can reprogram yourself, and there are ways that you can detox, defrag your hard drive,
Right.
and make sure that you keep what you need, get rid of the rest. Like garbage in, garbage out. But you should be able to like have the tools within yourself to do it for yourself. And Architect, tools is the right word, because a lot of us weren't given those tools in
Right.
childhood. We are not strong enough on our own. Maybe our parents weren't strong enough to give us what we needed,
Exactly.
to soothe ourselves without outside influences. So we have to learn to take care of ourselves. Um, Many things involved in putting yourself first was another thing I wanted to talk about, because sometimes it's okay. My hands look so huge. It's okay to put yourself first. You cannot fill everybody else's cup unless yours is full. And if you put too much in everybody else's cup, you'll have nothing left for yourself.
You know what I found? It's funny because long time ago, I came across a philosophy book, and I believe her name was Anne Rand. Rand. I can't. I've never
Ayn
had her
Rand?
last. Yes, she had a book called The Virtue of Selfishness. It's a philosophy.
Okay.
It was very interesting, the way that she stated selfishness, and basically she was basically saying that the outside world will see you as selfish when you're trying to take care of yourself, so you need to be taking care of yourself. But the way that she broke it down, it's a very short read as well, um, but it was basically right along the lines that you were saying, like the virtue of selfishness, knowing how to practice and when to save your energy and deal with going in versus going out.
Right. I only know Ayn Rand from Atlas Shrugged myself, but that's interesting that she had a philosophy behind that.
Yeah, and so yeah, the name of the book was The Virtue of Selfishness, and I
Okay.
learned a whole lot from that book. It was really good.
And selfishness is different from being self-centered, or, people who say they're self-absorbed or only thinking of yourself. Um, we're not talking about that in a negative connotation. We're talking about saving your strength for yourself first. We're talking about taking care of yourself. Catherine's making a good point: who you give your energy to, who you share energy with. That even goes into soul ties. That's a whole other topic.
Hmm.
You want to make sure that what you're bringing to yourself is going to be good for you. If it doesn't feed you, don't water it.
Right.
And that should be something that you do for yourself, because there's, at the end of the day, when you put your pillow down on when you put your head down on the pillow, you only have your thoughts with you. Can you sleep with those thoughts? So
Right.
that's why we say being selfish is okay, because you have to strengthen yourself. It's not selfish to strengthen yourself before others. Um,
Right.
but what we want to get into is, what does that look like for everybody? Like I said, it's not just yoga. What does self-care look like? It could be music, it could be art, exercise, therapy, sleep. It could be taking care of your skin. Maybe that's a routine you can give yourself to soothe yourself. Every Wednesday is your day to do masks and cucumbers on your face and lemon steams, which guys can
Yeah.
do too.
Yep. Yep. Not that I do any of that, but
Uh, oh, a good hot bath. Sometimes I know Architect likes a nice Mr. Bubble bath.
you better
Don't ask
believe
me
it.
how I know. Uh,
Hot
you
bubble.
need to be able to just soak.
I like my bubble.
Uh, you need a nice soak. Maybe you need to have a tray with your wine and a good book and some candles lit. Whenever I see that on TV, I'm like, who lit all these candles and who has to blow them all out? But you don't have to go crazy with it. You could just run yourself a nice soaking bath and, take that time for yourself. Take, 20 minutes to sit in the bath, steam yourself up, detox, completely, and, rejuvenate. You can be doing that. One of my favorite things to do, good food. Oh my Lord. I am not only a comfort eater, I'm like, because it looks good eater. Uh,
Yeah, that's me.
I love a good spread. I don't care if I'm eating a cupcake at 9 in the morning or if I'm eating salmon fried rice in the middle of the night. It makes you feel better.
Right. Right. But then that can become an addiction as well. That can mess around and become the habit that you use to get away from what you need to face as well.
Absolutely, that your good food should be a treat, or you cooking for others could be a way that you take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Catherine is mentioning meditation,
So
and I think that's a good point that you were talking on, Architect.
yes, meditation is very interesting because when you really put it, initially when you're dealing with that, everybody thinks like meditation is this crazy thing. But when you start to really try to center and you start to realize how much your mind is moving and how many thoughts are moving through your mind, it's kind of scary. It's a
Oh
scary
yeah.
thing to realize because you get to this point. I remember reading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and there was a practice in there in order to become present. Um, and it was basically like watch the thinker. So kind of setting yourself back and watching all of the thoughts that go through your mind, right? Um, and watching how your emotions are rise and fall with those thoughts. And it's amazing
Mm,
how those feelings, it's like your body is looks for that loop, that constant drug that you live in, like the depression or what have you. So you can break out of it mentally for a quick minute, but your body is used to receiving the chemicals. It's almost like a drug that it wants it more. So you fall back into that loop. So anyway,
yeah.
the practice was about being present. And I remember that exercise at that moment. I took the same path to work every day. Long story short, I came to that presence that he spoke of, and I was realizing the amount of things that I was missing on my daily walk from just being here all the time. And this is
Okay.
a route that I took for 5 years, and there were trees and certain things around me that I never took notice of because I was so far in
Mm,
my. So you don't realize what you're as you're walking through life on a daily basis, you're passing so many things up because we're so far in our minds. And that just goes back into the anxieties and the depressions. And I got all these bills to pay. I got to be down here to take the kid to school at this or to practice at this time. Like you're going through all
yeah.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. Your thoughts are racing, and you're just trying to piece together the string through of life through your day. And at the end of the day, what did you really do? What did you accomplish? What did you see? Like you said, you noticed things when you finally stepped into just that 5 minutes or just that walk. You
Right.
noticed things you hadn't seen before because you looked around you instead of being inside your own head.
Right. Yeah, I
I
really
mean,
Eckhart Tolle is a he's a beast. Like his early books, I don't know about like some of these guys. They do great when they come into the fold, and then they start to kind of go towards the profiting side. So you kind of lose.
yeah.
But his early books, A New Earth and the Power of Now, after for me was like
Okay. I know for myself, I lean towards not religion, but spirituality. And I tend to look for things like Buddhism, Eastern philosophies, Lao Tzu, and it because Eastern philosophies tend to tell you to depend on yourself instead of looking outside yourself for
Right.
validation and the grace of a higher power. It acknowledges a higher power or an intelligent design, but it tells you to depend on yourself first and what you can do to do that. Um, I know like watching documentaries about the Buddha helped me a lot because it does come down to meditation, not emptying your brain because anything could get in at that point, but
Right.
focusing on something that is not that issue, focusing
Right.
on something like you're breathing. And once you breathe and put that out, things will come out. If you just
What is
focusing your mind on
it?
water going down a drain.
Right. What is it? What is it? What you can touch, see, what you can feel, hear, see, I believe, and smell. They say those are things to focus on to bring you into the present moment. Those elements.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, what you can touch, what are 5 things you can touch? What are 5 things you can hear? What are 5 things you
Right.
can see? And that is also one of the things I use on a friend of mine that tends to have panic attacks. I have to get her attention and focus and say, what are 5 things you can hear? Tell me 5 things you can touch. So it brings you into the present and makes you focus. And once you can do that, then you can calm down. Then you
Right.
can say, okay, I'm going to be okay. My panic is worse than what's actually going to happen to me. Those are the things that come about when you try that. And Gabriel's making a good point. Stoicism, I mean, I don't want to be completely stoic, but I think there's a sense in that too. Oh, look who stepped in the room.
David
Ladies and
Simonism.
gentlemen,
What's
Mr. David Simonism is rolled up on the Sunday special report.
Don't let me take away from the special moment we're having here.
What? What's the special moment we're having?
Oh, come on. Your modesty, Diva, is beyond you. Come on.
up?
Like I said, it was never that big a deal.
I appreciate it. It's a very beautiful photo. I'm glad
Oh,
you
why,
did it.
thank you.
I'm sure you've been getting a lot of that from the chat room.
Oh, Miss Grace Martin and Miss Catherine and everybody, trying to, blow my head up, but I won't let it get to me.
Will this be the norm now? Is this the new normal?
I was going to say, we'll see how I feel.
Okay.
There may be days my room is too messy or my hair's not done. We may have to go back to the avatar, which obviously looks like me.
Somewhat. Yes, I can agree to that.
I did a good job. And this is me without my glasses. When I put my glasses on, it looks exactly like me.
Hey, Miss Diva, thank you. I think I'm gonna have to call you Miss Diva now because
Oh, is that where we're at now?
Oh, absolutely. Before I didn't know. I thought you was some child.
Oh my Lord.
Now I see you're a grown ass woman. For real, for real.
That's right. Get with it.
Yes. Much respect.
Mr. Simonism, what do you think about the topic we're speaking on tonight?
I apologize. I just got on.
Oh, look at this architect. He ran when he saw my face. Like he ran to jump in the room. The topic tonight is mental wellness, self-care, and you. What say you about the idea of self-care for men, women, and whoever needs it?
Well, I'll be honest with you. It's become difficult now, especially since you now have to wear a mask and gloves, and your mental health your mental psyche rather takes a little hit with all of the nervousness and unanswered questions that's going on. I mean, especially right now, we're divided as a country, as a globe, really. Each country have their own idea of how to combat COVID-19, and in the grand scheme of things, it has separated us. We are more separated.
Good television, Mr. Simonson.
Say again?
Right.
Okay.
I had a technical difficulty, but go ahead.
Okay. And basically what I'm saying here is the family support group has to be more important in these days. Your support group, who you trust, who you love. You have to stick with them more and more and get more familiar with those individuals, because honestly, we're so divided. Our tribes are divided. Our country's divided. It's really mentally draining, and basically, we're running out of toilet paper and soap. We got to get that stuff as well.
Now you gotta be
Because
worried
that
about
is
That's important for self-care.
absolutely a shower and a bath could change your whole philosophy in life.
that's the
You
truth.
know,
There you go.
and I recommend everyone out there get familiar with your support group and take care of yourself. Get some rest.
That's the biggest part.
Those are all important things. We appreciate Mr. David Simonism coming on to drop that knowledge, and we will be hearing from him often, I know, on various
Well,
topics such as Friday Night Live, 11 p.m.
yes,
Eastern Standard Time, where you can find him riling up various rappers.
stop it. Thank you, Diva. Thank you, Architect. It's been a pleasure and
No
great
doubt.
seeing you. Literally.
All
Great
right,
to
then.
see you too.
Thank you.
Hey, Miss Yaya Gilbert, I see you, girl. Shouting us out
You
on
know,
YouTube. We want to remind everybody, YouTube, I think Periscope, Twitch, Facebook always rocks with us. Thank you for tuning in to the Hip Hop Citizen Sunday Special Report, where we talk about topics that are hip hop adjacent. Mr. Architect, what do you have to say?
no, you before Dave came on, you were mentioning about calming down, and I just want to kind of to point to something that helped me through the early parts of my anxiety that I was dealing with, and that is the Calm app. Um,
Oh, yeah, I love their videos on YouTube. They're so cute.
the Calm app is absolutely incredible. Yes, it's a
Mhm.
pay for app, but there is no price that you can put on the health aspect that it gives you for your mind state and for your body. It's an absolutely incredible app. I recommend it if you're able to purchase it.
I'm going to mention another one that I like too, just because I think the commercials are funny. Headspace. That's another one that you can download. I think they have pay services as well, but a lot of people have bootlegged their videos onto YouTube, and they have some great sleep videos. Like, it's basically somebody reading you a story, and you just fall asleep. You know, there's some stories I haven't made it through, and I like stories. So then I'm like, damn, I missed that part. So, but it's a great app, and it's a great program on various platforms. So yeah, we're going to get into how you can help yourselves as well with some phone numbers at the end of the program and different ways you can get into therapy. Now, Architect, do you think that there is a stigma to therapy even in this day and age?
I do. And I'll be honest with you, I try my hand at it. I don't find no shame in it. I realized that when I was dealing with what I was dealing with as far as the anxiety, the best thing that I ever did was share that with others, because what I started to realize was there were people and it goes back to Dave's point about getting to know your peer, your group that is surrounding you. People that I've known for years had been dealing with this the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
and they when I opened up and mentioned what I was dealing with, it was almost like this breath of fresh air for them. They looked at me and they said, "Oh, really? Well, this is what the doctor's doing for me." And then it was
Oh,
one after another. But it was almost like it took somebody to break that barrier down and say,
yep.
"Talking about it. I'm not going to sit here and hold these emotions hostage." And so
Right.
when I did that, when I started talking to everybody that was in my circle, lo and
Mm-hmm.
behold, probably about 95% of them were dealing with some form of anxiety, some form of depression, uh, and fighting through whatever they're fighting. Some were taking medication, some were not. Some were doing varying things to try to help: meditation, therapy, all of that. Um, and so it just goes back to
But
what you.
I'm glad to hear they were addressing it though. And I'm glad that they were accepting of what you were saying. I get, like you said, somebody had to take the first step, I guess, and then everybody felt better about maybe sharing their stories, and then you were able to support each other and become a support group for each other. I'm really
Right.
glad to hear that.
Yeah. And I think we need
And like you I think
Okay.
we need more like that. I think we need more people to accept whatever way works for you to deal with those things that are positive. Therapy, art, exercise. It has to be okay. I know a lot of people advocate for no medication, plant-based soothing and things like that, plant-based
Herbs,
diets to, cleanse you and do things
right?
like that. That works for them. For other people, they need those pills just to function. They
Man,
need that medication or a
I'm not
doctor's help. And there shouldn't be anything wrong with that either.
at all. No, at all. And I'll say that medication was a bridge for me. Okay. Um,
Hmm.
every damn thing that there was available for me to learn how to get myself out of that pit, I did it. I went to the
Right.
doctor. They provided me medication. I already knew. I didn't want to do that. That's not something I wanted to do. What else? What are the other alternatives out there? Meditation.
Right.
You're I don't know if you ever heard of a supplement called SME. Um,
Yeah,
this
yeah. I've seen that in the store.
ashwagandha root. Uh, I mean, you name
What's in
it.
St. John's wort? Yeah.
And and what I started to notice was when I and and that the what I started to notice was when I started to rethink how I thought about what I was dealing with, as opposed to saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm dealing with this," and this is it's scary. It's why? What are people going to think about me? And I turned around and said, "This is what I'm dealing with," and I put it out there. It changed how I felt about it. It changed how I approached it. It changed my interactions with people. Again, I started to realize more. You'll be surprised about as, as excuse me, I'm stumbling upon some words. You'll be surprised at how many people out there are dealing with this more than anyone can imagine.
In your circle as well. You'd be
Yeah, and
surprised
not
who
just
in
in
your
my
circle.
right, exactly.
Right.
Because again, we don't take that time to check on the strong friend. We think everything's a joke, or
Exactly.
we avoid it with jokes when we get down into the
Oh
weeds.
yeah.
So that I think that's the main thing,
Um,
getting the taboo away
yeah.
from
And
it.
dialect hitting them with the GI Joe slogan. Now you know, and knowing's half the battle. GI Joe. Um,
Yeah.
and yet, how profound. One thing I wrote down when I knew we were getting ready for this topic was, it just occurred to me like I couldn't sleep one night, and I wrote it down because it goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the show about our men being stoic and feeling like they can't have emotions. And I wrote down, our men need to be given the gift of emotion. There are more than anger, exasperation, or pleasure. Anxiety, sadness, hurt, joy, sorrow, contentment are there too. We should give that gift as women without anger, berating, or manipulation. It's possible to feel all these things, experience all these things, and it's okay to not be okay. And people think men are just one note. And I think that's why I was writing it down. And women are emotional creatures. There's no getting around that. We're yin and yang. So women have the emotion. And it's okay to give that gift of emotion to the men in your life. Give them that space and that room and that acceptance to cry and feel hurt, to mourn
Well,
something, to have joy and achievement
I think we
without, oh, you need to man up. You need to stop crying. What you crying for? And I can't be with no dude that is acting more female than me. I've heard that. And
well,
I'm like, what?
I think we need to get away from. I think that's another stigma too, right? Women are emotional creatures. I think human beings are emotional creatures. We're human. We are not stagnant.
Yeah.
We are static in anything we do in life, and I think, um, and that's of course that's all hardwired stuff that we're taught, and I think that's what we need to break the barrier down and say, hey, we're all human beings. We are not
Yeah.
stagnant or static in anything that we do, whether it be like when we talk on Friday Night Live about politics and all that stuff, and I go down that rabbit hole. Same thing here. We all deal with shit every single day, and we deal with several different emotions every day, and we just need to be mindful that it's okay. It's okay. It's
Right.
okay to, you know what I mean? So
It's okay to
anyway,
not be okay. Now, of course, I'm going to try to balance it. Of course, you don't want your kid crying all day. Of course, you don't want um, your kids teasing other people because they're having their emotions, but nobody will let them have theirs. And of course, you don't want your kids you want them to have balance. I'll put it that way. You want them to
Right.
be able to have the tools to work within themselves to find their balance. So a lot of people as parents, we want them not to be on a seesaw of emotion. We want them to have it even. And so give your kids those tools, ways to deal with anger and disappointment and, frustration, ways to deal with those things that are, instead of being outside and lashing out, you want to give them the tools they need to deal with it positively and in a constructive way. Because
Right.
honestly, it makes me think of domestic violence situations, and where, of course, it can happen to both sexes, but it's mostly men percentage wise, where the man is acting out because of fear, of hurt, disappointment, during a breakup. I mean, and it's because they don't know how to deal with those emotions. They don't know how to process them. So I'm going to do something to you. And I'm just like, that's just one example.
Right. No, and I think, in just my opinion, I think these topics, how we deal with uh, these type of things, to me, that should be in school. You should be taught this stuff.
Oh,
How
yeah.
to be a human being and understand that, first of all, not being okay is okay, and what methods are there that's going to help you out of that rut that you're
That
in.
part.
You know what I
That
mean?
part.
I know that in California, there is a school district that has made meditation part of their curriculum.
I think saw that in New York too, like second graders doing transcendental meditation.
Right.
And I'm glad to see it. I wish it was something that could go to every school. I wish it was something that would occur everywhere, because their mental health and their mental wellness is just as important as 8-year-olds, as it is at 18, as it is at 80. It's
Right.
important for everybody at every stage to know how to deal with it positively and effectively. And that's the important part.
Yeah.
I know that we want to go into, and David Simonism brought up a good point, support and friends. And it makes me think of friends. How many of us have them?
Yeah.
Because, first of all, be careful who you call a friend. That goes back to whose energy you have around you.
That's the biggest
You are
one.
the sum total. You are the sum total of the 5 people closest to you. And
Yep.
so when you do need that help, when you are having an issue, if you are in the middle of a panic attack, call a friend. Reach
Definitely.
out. It could be in the middle of the night. They could be at work. Send them a text. Call the work number and tell them to transfer you. But make sure they are that type of friend that will be a help and not a hinder. Because some friends are just waiting for you to do something they can talk about, or some
Right.
friends are waiting for something to happen that they can hold over you.
Well, that ain't no
So
damn friend.
thank you. While you have your support group, make sure they're actually a support and
Right.
not just somebody you go to brunch with, or we've been
That ain't
shopping a couple of times, so I know I can talk to her about my marriage troubles. No.
right. Or that enable those distractions that we spoke of earlier, alcohol,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
You
So
always have a drinking buddy, or you have a smoking buddy, or someone's always trying to feed you. That's a good point, Architect.
yeah. So
I'm looking at
yeah.
the screen again. So what we want to move what we want to move into now is, of course, the hip hop adjacent side of it. So what we want to work on is removing the stigmas of our mental wellness and the care that we take for ourselves. And believe it or not, it has been addressed in hip hop. I think I was not aware to the degree I shouldn't have been, because I see hip hop as like a male dominated industry, first of all. And I see it as a tough guy image. Everybody wanted to be hard and on the block, and all they want to talk about is, their struggles and what they've been through. But that's the point. They're trying to express the struggles they've been through, the addiction they've seen, the traumas they've experienced in hip hop. And I know one article I was looking at on a site called pitchfork.com was Therapy is Gangsta, hip hop views on mental health and how it's evolving. Architect, do you recall hearing about it from Prodigy and Mobb Deep?
I don't. I don't.
Um, it turns out that he actually went to therapy and was speaking with Dr. Siri Satnam Singh of the Viceland show, The Therapist. So I don't watch a lot of Vice TV. They have a couple of good shows, but apparently this was back in 2017 even. And the idea of therapy has generally been shunned within the world of rap, but artists, including Jay-Z and Logic, are now espousing its benefits. Maybe it comes with age, because I doubt Jay-Z at 20 would have been talking about therapy.
Well, you know, I find it kind of odd because as much as our age bracket tends to give a lot of crap to the young artists that are out now. What is his name? XX Stencione.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, my daughter absolutely loved his music, and of course, I didn't listen till after he passed away. But when you listen to what he's talking about, like this kid, the amount of things that he was dealing with, and he was putting it on record, and the world was watching.
Okay.
And it was like nobody, there was no help. Mac Miller.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Oh, Mac Miller.
If you listen to his,
he struggled for years.
Where's the help? You know, it just.
But is it okay to talk about? Like, who could they go for help when the hip hop life they live tells them they should be okay because they have money and hoes and drink and all that kind of thing? Who do they go to?
So, and that's my thing. It's like if you actually were paying attention to their music, they were looking for the help. They wanted that help. But people just love the music and everything else, I guess, just didn't matter at that point. I don't know. But I'd say that to say that the younger artists seem to be touching on it a lot. You know?
I mean, so, I'm heartened to hear that. I'm glad to hear it because I think it's become more socially acceptable, and maybe it is generational. I'm not going to lie that it's okay to talk about your feelings, quote unquote, because some people think it's soft and you shouldn't be showing that side and you sound feminine, dude. But those are the things we have to drop as well. And I know in the article, I'm turning my head to read it, it was saying that Kid Cudi was one of the first rappers to candidly talk about his therapy. A year ago, I wouldn't even go to a therapist or psychiatrist, but I gave it a shot. He told Complex in 2013. It's working for me, but it's not for everyone. I've got some fucking problems. It's good for me to talk to someone who helps me see things. I had no other choice. He even checked himself into rehab for depression and suicidal urges. And he admitted that in this interview in 2013. Yeah. And I think more people are like bringing that up. Somebody said last year, Run DMC's Daryl McDaniels put out a book called 10 Ways Not to Commit Suicide, in which he admitted first seeking professional help in 2004 and pushed for more Black men to seek treatment. So his saying, he says, is therapy is gangster. It actually empowered me.
Yeah, and you know, there's a lot of pro athletes speaking out on it as well. I know Kevin Love is huge on that right now. So no, it's good to see it getting the proper exposure that it needs to get, and for it to be okay to be talked about.
I think that's what it is, and it's coming from not only the elder statesmen, but like you said, it's coming from this generation of SoundCloud rappers or whoever else that's coming up to say, look, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm dealing with, and here's how I'm dealing with it. It's no longer about addiction and drinking, and that's going to be how I, dampen it within myself. I was reading these articles, and someone was mentioning Tupac, mentioning it way back in the day and talking about his demons, his help that he needed. And how it was something that was important to him to address. We have a list of articles in here like the welcomecollection.org. I'm looking at ignitetreatment.com. I think another one that's going to touch on people that's modern day is Kanye and his struggles. And he was diagnosed, from those who may not know, who are listening to us, he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And I think it was 6 years ago that he was diagnosed, and let everybody know that he was diagnosed. Yeah. Because he had to be checked into a hospital for a while.
Right. But then how that was received in the community, and he's fucking crazy. Like, you know what I'm saying? How disrespectful.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
now I found it. West had been hospitalized for a mental breakdown in 2016, and on the cover of his Yay album, he wrote, "I hate being bipolar. It's awesome." I also saw another article where he says he's on and off his meds, which is actually typical for bipolar disorder. They get well to the point they don't need it anymore, so then they go off them. And he mentioned that he's more creative when he's off them. So that's also
Right.
something that makes him go up and down. And
Right.
it's frustrating for the people that have to live with that. But at the same time, you have to respect the fact that he decided to talk about it and be real about it in a hip hop community that, like you said, sees it and just goes straight to, "Oh, you're crazy."
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not necessarily crazy. It's just one more part of that person that you have to keep in mind, be mindful of when you deal with them.
That's right.
And
That's
there's
right.
nothing wrong with being mindful. I saw a lot of UK articles too. I don't pay attention to the rap scene or the hip hop scene in the UK a lot. I probably need to get into it more. Um, but one website I want to point everybody to is called hiphoppsych.co.uk. And it is actually a website that addresses the ways that hip hop can be used to work with people in therapy, the way they choose to relate to each other, bond with each other. They have their own podcast, and they have events sometimes linked to hip hop music, sharing it with each other. It was really interesting for someone in the UK, me, to be using hip hop. It's a worldwide culture, y'all. And they're mentioning on their website that it's a powerful vehicle raising awareness about mental health. It's rich with references to psychiatric illness that have not been explored, dissected, and documented until now. So they're really taking their passion for hip hop and rap and using it to bridge that gap between asking for help and masking your need for help. And so
Yeah.
I
That's
thought that was really interesting. It's called hiphoppsych.co.uk. I encourage you to look at it, and their and how we should reach out and try to help one another within the hip hop community. Because, like Architect was saying, you can be considered crazy and everybody just moves on from it.
yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's more to it than that. And I think people should take that into consideration. You should find an artist that you relate to, that speaks to your experiences, that makes you content. You know, we talk about the self-care and people may think it's frou-frou and, that's only for girls to go to a spa and do all that bathtub stuff. But okay, find a way to make it work for you.
I'll
Find a way
eat
that
bubbles and
works.
I'll eat a bowl of Captain Crunch while I'm
You
there. It's all good.
gonna take
But
the
I gotta have,
Captain Crunch in the bath with you?
yeah, I gotta have the crunch berries though with it.
Crunch berries. Ugh. Uh, who out there is imagining an architect taking a bubble bath eating Captain Crunch? Raise your hand. Okay, so moving on to artists that you can relate to. My recommendations for artists that I think have been speaking about it, or just would be good to relate to the message in their music, because a lot of the times that's also how artists share what they're going through with us and what help they found as they use their music. Her HER, she's released a few things in the last week or two, especially with events lately, and she released this song called "I'm Not Okay." It is so gorgeous, and she's got this video that goes with it of contemporary dancers, maybe Alvin Ailey dancers. It reminded me of that style, and it was just a gorgeous track. I really liked that. And the rapper that I just discovered a little while ago, I'm so late, Ciroc, and she has so many good tracks. And the one I'm really loving is Forever.
Hmm.
That clip on YouTube. I'm just playing it every morning, and just it's so rich and vibrational to me. I'm just loving it. So those are two that come to mind for me. You have any recommendations, Architect?
I don't know. I have to say, Mac Miller was pretty big for me. And then artists such like Little Brother, they really do discuss like real life things that
Mhm.
not that they go specifically into depression, but they talk about life. So the cross references are there. You know what I mean? They don't go directly into it, but it lets you know that other people are dealing with stuff too.
I think that is how people are relating to artists more nowadays. I know we mentioned a few weeks ago there was an article where Dr. Dre was talking about celebrities being on social media too much, and there's the veil of mystery isn't there anymore. But that's also kind of what people appreciate, is that they feel that connection to artists even more because the artists are on Instagram having a live, talking about what they're going through, crying with people, letting them know I've been hurting, this is what I've been going through, or this happened to me and I'm sharing it with you, um, in hopes that they reach someone. Yeah, there might be some celebrities out there clout chasing and doing it for the gram, but I want to believe that people are actually doing it to reach people and put that message out there to inspire someone to get the help they need. That's why we're discussing it tonight. This is a space where you can talk about those things. We would love to see if anybody else wants to call in and have a discussion. I know we had Gabe earlier. The link is in the description, pinned in the chat. I think people would be interested in having this discussion. And even if you want to share the stream later, replay it later with your friends, and maybe use this as an avenue to open up the discussion. People in rap and people in hip hop have put the messages out on all kinds of topics. And now that mental health and wellness and self-care are also things they've been talking about as hip hop citizens. So the way we refer to it, we want to remove those stigmas. We want to say it's okay to seek help. Those messages need to be out there.
Agreed. And whatever works in a good way, whatever works in a good way to
In a
get you.
good way.
And
So
what our earlier caller Gabe alluded to is definitely the reprogramming. You gotta change that inner narrative. It's the hardest thing to do.
thank you. That negative talk to
Right.
yourself, however you address it, you need to address it within yourself first before you have to take on somebody else's. Because I know people are good-hearted, want to reach out and help their friends and help other people when they volunteer or when they're manning phone lines and things like that, at helplines maybe. But if you are not in the right place to do those things, it won't be helpful to anyone else. So you've got to make sure that you take care of yourself, like we mentioned before. Art therapy, exercise, you've got to even go for a 10-minute walk every night and help yourself out, whatever works. We're going to bring things to a close unless somebody out there wants to talk. Obviously, that's what we're here for. This is the Hip Hop Citizen live stream Sunday special report where we talk about topics that are hip hop adjacent, with Architect 7 and Diva Views. And we want you to know you can call in, talk to us when we're having a deep discussion about topics like this. And if you do replay this later or talk to someone about having this, just remind them that we are going to be talking about sensitive topics and topics that may be triggering to some. So keep that in mind for them as well. There's nothing wrong with being mindful. And I think what we need to do is just wrap up with a slide I put together of different ways that you can help others and maybe help yourself. One website I want to mention is therapyforblackmen.org. I think that's really important. I'm focused on men because I know women will seek help for themselves. I know a lot of times women will either reach out to themselves or reach out to get the help themselves. And I know for me, it was a matter of the will to survive. Something in me made me reach out. So a lot of what we need to do is get the information out there to get people the help they need. And for our listeners who may not be viewing this, we want to mention that the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 800-273-8255. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 800-799-7233. Now, these are American numbers, but if you are in another country or national list, find out what they are for your country. Find out how you can help others and what help you can find for yourselves. The National Child Abuse Hotline is 1-800-4A-CHILD. If you need to report something happening to a child or if you are that child. So now, of course, Architect, this is the digital age. So we want to let everybody know that there's online services that you can use. Freeonlinetherapy.org. That's free. Let's see. 7cups.com. That's also a free site where you can go into a chat room with a therapist, or you can go into a group chat room specific to what you may be dealing with and talk to others in a chat. just type. You don't have to talk to anyone. You don't have to face someone. You don't have to do that. But if you are looking for face-to-face therapy online, there's a website called Talkspace, and they have tiered fee services. So whatever you pay for is what you get, like 30 minutes, or you can pay monthly for every week. And their website is www.lp.talkspace.com. Some organizations that are going to be working to reduce violence is futureswithoutviolence.org. And for Black men or any men that are looking for help in a crisis, we encourage you to go to www.oneinsix.org. That's an online support line. And the reason it's called that is because we realize that 1 in 6 men will experience domestic violence or abuse in their lifetime. And we want those numbers to be acknowledged, and they should go and seek the help they want. You can always pause this video, take these numbers down, pass them out to others. Make sure that you guys are out there getting the help you need as hip hop citizens, and look out for your fellow hip hop citizens. I'm the Diva. These have been my views. This is my face. Either get used to it, or I'm going back behind the avatar. So we're going to go out on the outros and give everybody our socials. We hope that you've enjoyed the program. We appreciate Gabe for calling in, everybody participating in the chat on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, most social platforms. Architect, where can the people find you?
At Architect7 at Instagram. And I just revitalized the Architect7 Facebook page, so you can reach me there as well. And I just want to say, it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to talk about the things that you're dealing with. And always know that somebody's out there willing to listen.
Absolutely. And thank you for having your male perspective on this. I really do appreciate you being willing to discuss these things and talk about your personal experience. Thank you, Architect.
Not a problem.
You can find me on Instagram at It's Diva Views. Not a very interesting profile, but it's there. On Facebook, I'm Diva Views Citizen. You can follow me there or send friend requests. And broadcast from bedroom and out on a great song. We're going to leave the slide up for you that has the information for the various therapy lines and helplines that you guys should talk about and look forward to. Architect, we also want to mention the other shows that we have. So Friday Night Live is our cornerstone show where all our team comes in. Don Juan the Mac, Dialect 718, Mr. David Simonism that called in before. Join us Friday Night Live, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we have interviews, we discuss hip hop birthdays and anniversaries, news and gossip. And what other shows do we have for the people?
We got Tuesday is the Bash Brothers, and that's 8 to 9. And then Friday at lunchtime, we have Unknown's lunch mix. So that's
okay, so you guys can look forward to the Bash Brothers. You can look forward to a lunchtime mix. While you're at lunch, you can have a DJ mixing for you, just for you, on your lunch break. We hope you guys will continue to support us in the efforts that we make to make sure we get live news and information out to the hip hop citizens. Let me drop that Cash App one more time. Help us to get some equipment. It's $ hip hop citizen. What you about to say, Architect?
No, I was just about to say that. You go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Give us money, Hip Hop Citizen Cash App. Leave us a tip. Leave us a tip. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us on Sunday Special Report. If there are any topics you'd like us to cover that are hip hop adjacent, be sure to contact us on any social media platform and let us know. Let us know how you enjoy the show. Share the stream, and we will see you all on the next one. Good night.
Good night.